Now we are moving to a completely different story right now. On to our next topic, Syria. Inspectors have begun their mission to destroy Syria's chemical arsenal as clashes still rage. The war still continues. Yesterday alone, clashes in Damascus greeted the inspectors, whose looming deadline is November 1st. We're joined by i24News reporter Danny Swibel. Danny, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, this is, I think we were dealing so much with Iran and Netanyahu, but the UN inspectors arrived into Syria yesterday, facing already impossible odds, right?
Yes, listen, this is a very, very, very dangerous mission that they have in front of them. This is something that has never been done. To go and try to dismantle these weapons in the middle of a war is unheard of, and it's the first time something like this has ever happened. Yeah. Just to give you an example of the danger, just them even getting there, they couldn't fly to the Damascus airport because the road from the Damascus airport to the site, the first site, was too dangerous. So they had to cross over from the Lebanese border. So when you're crossing over from the Lebanese border to the Syria border, you know that's not the most stable.
Yeah, that's not the good way to go in.
So just to put it all into context, so their mission at hand, 7 of the 19 of these sites are in the middle of a war zone. So even for them to be able to get to do these tasks that are very dangerous is already something that is inconceivable. They have to maybe consider the fact that there's going to be fighting when they arrive to these places, and they might have to work out or be part of negotiations for local truces.
We already saw that just in their first trip around. I think it was, their findings were postponed by several days, or was it even, a week, because they couldn't get to the places of the chemical attack that sparked all of this. Now, the deadline for them to, I think it's the deadline to dismantle the chemical, it's November 1st.
Yes.
Today's October 3rd. Can it even be done?
It's a very daunting task. Listen, and there's several elements to this. They first are going to be trying to destroy the mixing and the preparing of these chemicals, so there's certain technologies they have to destroy, and then even the munitions to deliver something like this has to be destroyed. And again, so this task in itself is a very daunting task, but then again, to even get to these locations is something that might not happen, and then we will see maybe a series of big international, kind of tensions when maybe
and the world is watching because the deadline is so tight in wake of also the deadlines that have been mentioned about Iran and its unconventional hopes. But you mentioned very rightfully so that Syria has been in the midst of a civil war for the last 2.5 years. But something happened in the last couple of days that I'm wondering if it can give hope. Is that in the city of Aleppo, right? Schools are being reopened.
That is correct.
And before we touch on that, let's take a look at your report.
Thousands of children are going back to school in the Syrian city of Aleppo, despite the sounds of war just around the corner. Reopening schools is an important step, says one of the city's residents. It gives a sense of normality, even if the war continues only a few kilometers away. During the end of 2012, makeshift and clandestine institutions were set up by rebel forces and NGOs, allowing some students to continue their studies. The situation isn't ideal, but it is a big step up from the chaos of the previous summer.
Last year we had books that were not correct, talking about this person and that person, but with their inaccuracies, they were still treated as history books, but were not accurate histories.
This year is better than last year. There were no chemical attacks or rockets, and no airplanes or bombs.
The most important thing is to start working on the next generation of Syrians, says one of the teachers. The new schools were previously abandoned buildings, with the walls of the courtyard serving as a testament to the violence, pockmarked with shrapnel. Supplies like notebooks and pencils are scarce, with many subjects difficult to teach due to a lack of books or teachers. But residents felt it was important to create a little normacy, away from the thoughts of war. The children of the area have been abandoned to their fate, and most lost an entire year of school, explained one of the headmasters. We must not lose the generation that will be the one that restores the country after the war. The teachers come because they want to change things, not to make a living. Meanwhile, shells continue to fall daily, with teachers unsure if they will eventually fall on the schools. They aren't just teaching the students math, or science, or history, but also how to hope and pray for a better life and a brighter future within Syria.
Now, Danny, that's, by the way, a great report. That's a very optimistic thing. Is it wise? Because, I mean, that war is still going on. That civil war is still raging. And they open the schools. Why?
These kids have nothing. They have really no prospects if they're not in school. And, I think the Syrian community knows that. So local NGOs, even different rebel groups, are really trying to get the kids back to school. Right. Because, again, they want them to be part of the future rebuilding of Syria. And for that, you need an education. They're aware of this. But we still do see, and we hear reports every day of schools getting hit by rockets.
In Aleppo itself, because you've been doing a lot of stuff about Syria. Aleppo itself, how bad is it in the midst of of the fighting? What goes on there? I'm wondering, and it's very important for normalcy for kids, but how safe is it?
It's not particularly safe. Aleppo was actually one of the last major cities of the fighting. And now, when you think of Aleppo is one of the oldest cities, inhabitable cities in the world. It was, in the Ottoman Empire, it was one of the third largest cities behind Istanbul and Cairo. This is a major city, and there's some of the brightest people in Syria, maybe some of the brightest people in the Middle East. So maybe they have this history of wanting to continue education. But again, we are hearing reports that a lot of schools are being hit by rockets, different napalm. We see reports, actually it was the town of Raqqa, where 12 students were killed, faces burned, the ones who survived, permanent damage.
And it's important to remind people that it's an ongoing war. Many are dying. A lot of children being hit there every single day. Danny Swibel, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
When we get